I'm now about to read from Maria Valtorta's visions of the flagellation of Jesus. He's been led to Pilate, and Pilate has tried to convince the Jews to release him. Pilate said, "I'll give him lashes." And the Jews said, "No, crucify him." So Pilate said, as a compromise, effectively, "I'll have him scourged," which is then apparently something worse than the lashes. And we know from the Turin Shroud image, about which I've made one or two other videos thus far, that the scourging is terrible. It rips the flesh off, goes into the muscle, and is truly horrifying. So now I'm going to read what Maria Valtorta wrote down of what she saw happening 2,000 years ago. Jesus is led by 4 soldiers to the courtyard beyond the hall. In the middle of that courtyard, which is entirely paved with coloured marble, there is a high column, like the one in the porch. At about 3 metres from the floor, it has an iron bar protruding at least 1 metre and ending with a ring, to which Jesus is tied, with his hands joined above his head after he has been undressed. He has on only short linen drawers and sandals. His hands, tied at his wrists, are raised up as far as the ring, so that although tall, he rests only on the tips of his toes on the floor. And even that position is a torture. I've read, I do not know where, that the column was low and that Jesus was bent over it. That may be. I say what I see. And just a pause there. This shows the honesty of Maria Valtorta's visions. She knows there are other apparent visionaries who have seen things or reported seeing things differently, but she's just noting down what she sees. And then it's for the reader to discern what is true and what is not. But that's not her role. She's not a propagandist. She's just putting down what she sees. So to continue. Behind him, that is Jesus, stands one who looks like an executioner with a clear Jewish profile. In front of him, another man, looking like the previous one. They are armed with scourges, made of 7 leather strips, tied to a handle, and ending with small lead hammers. They begin to strike him rhythmically, as if they were practicing. One in front and one behind, so that Jesus' trunk is in a whirl of lashes and scourges. And I'll just interrupt there the narrative for a moment. Those who've examined the shroud in recent decades, in decades since Maria Valtorta died in 1961, have said that the markings on the Turin Shroud show that the lashes were the work of 2 men, perhaps one shorter than the other. So it's fascinating that she is seeing 2 men here who are delivering these blows to our Lord. To continue. The 4 soldiers to whom he has been handed are indifferent and are playing dice with 3 other soldiers who have just arrived. And the voices of the players follow the rhythm of the sound of the scourges, which hiss like snakes and then resound like stones striking the stretched skin of a drum. They beat the poor body, which is so slender and as white as old ivory, and then becomes covered with stripes that at first are a brighter and brighter pink shade, then violet, Then it displays blue swellings full of blood. Then the skin breaks, letting blood flow from all sides. They redouble their cruelty on his thorax and abdomen. But there is no shortage of blows given to his legs, arms, and even to his head, so that no fragment of his skin may be left without pain. And once again I interrupt to parallel this with the shroud. Blows are everywhere over the shroud man's body. Legs, arms, trunk of his body, everywhere. Back to the narrative. And not a moan. If he were not held up by the rope, he would fall. But he does not fall and does not groan. Only his head hangs over his chest after so many blows, as if he had fainted. "Hey, stop! He must be alive when he is killed," shouts a soldier scoffingly. The two executioners stop and wipe their perspiration. "We are exhausted," they say. "Give us our pay so that we may have a refreshing drink." "I would give you the gallows, but here you are." And a decurion throws a large coin to each executioner. "You've done a good job. He looks like a mosaic." "Titus, do you mean that this man was really Alexander's love? We must let him know, so that he may mourn over his death. Let us untie him." And by the way, that reference to Alexander is to a Roman soldier on one of the gates entering Jerusalem, whom Jesus encounters when he's going through on one of the journeys he needs to make. And I note this Alexander in his brief conversation with Jesus, and it's talking about, I think, what the soul is and what God is, because these pagans just don't understand. Alexander says he's from Beneventum, which is modern day Benevento in southern Italy. So, to continue. They untie him, and Jesus falls on the floor like a dead body. They leave him there, pushing him now and again with their feet, shod with caligae, to see whether he moans. But he is silent. Is he dead? Is it possible? He's a young man and a handicraftsman, so I'm told. And he looks like a delicate lady. "I will take care of him," says a soldier. And he sits him with his back against the column. Clots of blood appear where he was. He then goes towards a fountain gurgling under the porch, fills a tub with water, and pours it on Jesus' head and body. That's it. Water is good for flowers. Jesus draws a deep sigh and tries to stand up, but his eyes are still closed. "Oh, good. Come on, darling. Your dame is waiting for you." But Jesus in vain presses his hands against the floor, trying to stand up. "Come on, quick. Are you weak? Here is some refreshment," says another soldier sneeringly. And with the shaft of his halberd, he delivers a blow to Jesus' face, striking it between the right cheekbone and the nose that begins to bleed. And once again, just to interrupt the narrative, the shroud does suggest that Jesus' face is bruised. There's been a blow to it. Continuing. Jesus opens his eyes and looks round. His eyes are veiled. He stares at the soldier who struck him, wipes the blood with his hand, and then, with much effort, he stands up. Get dressed. It is immodest to stay like that, you lewd man. They all laugh, standing around him. And he obeys without speaking. But when he bends, and he alone knows how much he suffers when stooping to the ground, contused as he is, as his wounds open even more when the skin is stretched, and more are formed as the blisters burst. A soldier gives a kick to his garments and scatters them. And every time Jesus reaches them, staggering to where they lie, a soldier pushes them away or throws them in a different direction. And Jesus, suffering bitterly, goes after them without uttering a word, while the soldiers deride him obscenely. He can dress himself again at last. He can also put on the white tunic, which was left in a corner and is still clean. He seems to wish to conceal his poor red garment, which only yesterday was so beautiful, and now is filthy with rubbish and stained with the blood sweated at Gethsemane. Furthermore, before putting on his short red vest, he dries his wet face with it, cleaning it of dust and spittles. And the poor holy face looks clean, marked only by bruises and small cuts. And he tidies his hair, which is hanging ruffled, and his beard, out of an inborn need to be personally tidy. Then he squats in the sunshine, because my Jesus is shivering. Fever begins to torture him with its cold shivers, and he feels weak because of the blood he has lost in fasting and walking so much.